Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. I hope you guys had a good weekend and let's go ahead and fire away. Anything goes. You can unmute yourself or type in, but anything goes.
And we'll start, go ahead, Robert, then we'll do Bill.
Hey, Mr. Robert.
Hey, Greg. I have a question that is a little bit off the usual specifics here. I know someone who labels herself as a recovering Catholic. And I guess really this question applies to any religion in that sense. Using oils, is there a way to remove the programming done by a religion?
You're talking about specifically for the Catholic thing or the...
For the Catholic, but it could theoretically apply to any religion.
Yeah.
Or is there, I think of all the classes I've taken and I can see things in many of them. Is there like a series of things to do?
I would say probably more a series of things, like the thing, like I could go back to I grew up in Catholic schools and it wasn't so much the religion part. It was how things were being run. You know what I mean? It was like an authority / abuse of authority, kind of like, for example, growing up in Catholic schools, we had uniforms. Our hair, the boys' hair had to be above their collars. And, I would be told on a regular basis, like I needed to get my hair cut because Jesus wanted me to cut my hair.
Right.
And I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with the religion. That has to do with the people who are just... So, if you look at that, like that kind of thing, that is manipulation. That was using religion or their authority in the place of being a representative. And manipulation is a type of psychic attack that is under the heading of enslaving thought form. And it was just a way to get everybody looking a particular way and everybody to behave. And so they did it in ways that were not always proper. You know what I mean? And I would say that that's more of a people thing than the religion thing. People do that in business, people do that and everything. It's just it hurts a little extra, or it wounds a little bit deeper when it's in a religious or spiritual practice.
Yes.
And so I would say, what's that?
Plus, when it's a religious practice, there's more people involved.
And there's more people and there's more peer pressure. There's more of hierarchical structure. You do this, and then everybody's given peer pressure, you should totally do that.
Right.
And so I would go under there's this big formula to, if you really are wanting to unwind psychic attack. We've done it in some of the classes, but even in the Phoenix class, you could start going down the road with that under the one that's for enslaving, manipulation, that kind of thing. Because it's not always going to be that. It could be even the judgmental thing, and where going back to being a good Catholic, the joke is that I'm very good at feeling guilty for anything that I've done. And so there's a judgmental thing, but it also can be self-judging. And so with that, you could look at the judgmental kind of psychic attack, and there's one component, because there's if you look at the psychic attack information, there's 6 different kinds, right? There's 6 different kinds, but there's actually 7 principles that's drawing upon, and it's tied actually to planetary energies. And even when we do work with the seven archangels and things like that, it all plays a role in that as well. But the seventh part is it's not talked about very much, but it's like psychosomatic / like self-judgment. And so there I would say, like, you could do the judgment component, but you could follow the kind of the same parameters out of that class. I haven't put in the psychosomatic component too much just because it's a little intense. But the thing that works really, really well for psychosomatic stuff is poplar balsam. I mean, that is where poplar balsam, it just shines. And so that's why, the poplar is in so many different blends. And when you're doing some of the deep work, even the spray, it cleans up the basic chakra, but it's cleaning up, because that component is tied to Saturn. So it's tied to like learning your lessons, manifesting karmas, things like that. It's Saturn out of everything is the planet where, like, okay, let's be hard on myself. It's that component. It's like you are going to learn your lesson whether you get it or not, kind of thing. And so I would probably start with the other ones first, and then you could work your way to the psychosomatic. It's ironic that you're bringing this up because I'm sitting there and I'm looking at my things that I've written for next year, because we have like a bunch of classes that are written, and there's this one involving psychic attack kind of, I even like using the word attack. I like to call it like projections, just because it takes the drama out of it all. But like I'm sitting there looking at this and I'm like, God, I could turn this, the level that you could go through and treat. I mean, we could actually spread it out over like 4 or 5 classes. But
that's a lot.
It's a lot, because you could actually take each one and go down the rabbit hole. Like each, like you take aggressive thought forms, and you could just go down the rabbit hole. But the thing that I like about doing those projections is I think it's actually a truer form of psychotherapy than just going after stress and fear and trauma. I mean, I think those are important as well, but the thing that generates the stress, the fear, the trauma, are those projections, right? So like if you diminish the projections, all of a sudden that other stuff just kind of diminishes. And so, even like we're looking at the health rays in a couple of weekends, and really like when the health rays are not functioning well or are functioning well, directly dictates your stress response. Like how well you are able to adapt and overcome obstacles or not. And the more rigid that stress response is, the more that it generates anger, it generates anxiety, it generates like all these things. So like in that class, we're going to clean up the health rays, but we're going to make that stress response way more flexible than we're used to. And because of that, it allows for new information to come in. It allows you to adjust and change, but it also allows for spiritual energies, connections to deities to increase and improve. And coming back to this issue with like growing up, with whatever religious background it is. By the way, that's a very common joke amongst Catholics. Like that's a very common joke. Like, oh, I'm a recovering Catholic.
Yes.
Like that's very, very common.
And
it's kind of funny amongst Catholics. It's like
you talked about the judgment and guilt in Jewish.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how they're controlled, is through guilt.
Yeah. And, it was only, a generation before me, probably, where if you were Catholic, you married another Catholic. If you were Jewish, you married another Jewish person. If you were Baptist, you married another Baptist. I mean, I think Catholics were probably more hardcore about it than Baptists and things like that, but like you didn't really marry outside your religious upbringing. And so, as time goes by, all that stuff starts to fall away. But I mean, it's very much there. And
right. And I don't want anyone to misunderstand my question. There is a lot of positive in every single religion.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong, because my fundamental beliefs are based on what I learned going through catechism classes and going to church. But there are other ways of seeing it too.
It's always tarnished by people. You know what I mean? Like that's always the thing. Not too long ago, I was talking with somebody who was in not a religious practice, but a spiritual tradition. And, there were some people who maybe misbehaved in that organization or whatever. And, it's nothing that I'd ever done, but you hear the stories, and they were like a little bit defensive about it when we were talking. And I was like, just because a couple people acted up in the situation, that doesn't take anything away from the practice. You got to keep your eyes on the practice itself, and is it doing it? No matter what circle you're in, religious, spiritual, business, family, there's always a couple bad apples. It's always, people do weird things, especially with religion and spirituality, and even psychology. You hear those stories that I talk about with doing work with groups of psychologists and stuff. Those situations were brutal. All the therapists, all the psychologists were brutal with each other. I mean, brutal. They're all super educated. They all had PhDs. They all were super opinionated. It doesn't matter the circle. It's just people, and there's old souls doing things. There's souls that are in the medium phase, and then there's new souls sticking their toe in stuff and acting like young souls. And so, again, my personal experience, going through Catholic schools. When I was there was pieces that I liked, and there's pieces that I hated. And as I got older and looked back on it, very grateful that I had that upbringing, but in the moment, wasn't too thrilled about it. But then after the fact, looking back on it, a lot of great things came out of that. A lot of exposure to things that I was very grateful for. But in the moment, that contamination by people was hard to deal with.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That was the thing about Jesus wants me to cut my hair. It was always something. It was just always something. But kind of almost any circle that I've been in with that's been a religious or spiritual circle, there's always something like that. You know? And so
and it may not be the president. It may be someone between me, the lowly person on the totem pole, and the president. So
with stuff like that, I guess bottom line, if we circle back around, I always go to the projections, and that Phoenix technique is a good place to start. We'll probably go down that rabbit hole next year quite substantially, and if we don't, I'll just give you my notes, and it makes sense out of it.
Okay, so to review, Phoenix class, the enslavement manipulation section, the judgmental guilt, and then after doing that for a while, move on to the psychosomatic self-judgment portion and bring in poplar balsam, even the spray, to help through all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Yeah, I have an extra potent form of poplar, it's poplar absolute, and poplar CO2, that it's so strong that sometimes I'm a little cautious about even putting it out there for people, but maybe we should do that for your situation.
Okay, so poplar CO2?
No, it would be poplar supreme.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what I would call it if I was to put it out. But it's so strong. It's really strong. Yeah.
I think that this may not need it. This person's
Okay.
just sort of becoming aware of the issues.
Yeah.
And I don't think will be an issue shifting. It's just more of she
Yeah.
just came upon it.
And like the other thing too is, I mean, this is a common thing. This is a common thing even when I was doing healing. Like the level that I could treat it and the level that they wanted to treat it was not always the same. And so you know, you might be able to do this, but they want this. And
Right.
so like there's nothing wrong with that. You just have to make sure that you know you don't push the envelope too much for the person. I mean, you know all that stuff. Like
yeah,
it's
definitely a start off slow and see how it goes. And I think as we do that, it will be an ongoing process until she's done.
Yeah. I mean, working that stuff, the psychic projections, it changes your mind. Like it changes how you process information. It makes your mind much quieter. It makes you a lot less reactive. It makes your tendencies not to be as triggered. You know, it's basically cultivating, where we were touching on it when we did the streams of consciousness, but like in the Buddhist tradition and in the alchemical tradition, they refer to like mind stream or streams of consciousness, sometimes in Buddhist and then in psychological practices. But it's like this stream of awareness that comes through, and how you calibrate that is actually through treating the different projections. Like you go through, and so those projections are all tied to the planetary energies, right? So like an ordinary psychic projection, you know, where somebody just gets upset and just vomits all over you, right? That's associated with the sun. And then aggression is tied with the moon. And then enslaving thought forms are Mars. And then judgmental is Mercury. Violence is Jupiter. And then racist is Venus. And then the psychosomatic is Saturn. So that's still considered, the psychosomatic issue still is considered like a form of psychic attack, but it's the attack is actually directed at yourself, like it's you directing it like towards you.
Sort of a judgmental kind of thing.
Yeah. It's, well, a lot of times it's like, oh, I'm not good enough, and then you physicalize that, or you know whatever it is. A lot of times that has to do with like conflict, and you know you hear that term in psychological circles where a person's a self-fulfilling prophecy, like, oh, I'm going to be abandoned. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to create situations so that you abandon, or I abandon you, or, you know, I have the tendency to get betrayed. So I'm going to create situations where I surround myself with people who are going to betray me. That's the psychosomatic thing. Like, that's like that self-fulfilling prophecy. Probably wouldn't talk that out with clients, just because like sometimes when people are in crisis, like in that area, and you start talking about that topic, they'll double down on how hard they are on themselves. And so it's almost like more therapeutic just to treat it, or to use different terminology so they don't inflict harm on themselves. You know, because they're not doing it intentionally. It's not like they go, but it's like if that mechanism is already in play, it just like takes it deeper. And I guess I'm leaving out a piece here. So when you look at the psychic projections, they're actually all byproducts of the will. Like, so when you go through and you shift these things, you are literally changing the aspects of the will. Like, you could say these different components are mixed, and depending on where they're at with the activity of their projections will dictate if they're more driven by their basic, more driven by their emotional will, or their solar plexus, their ajna, or if these things have been regulated to a high enough degree, they're driven by their crown. And so as you go through and treat these things, the will shifts, and this aspect of like inflicting that harm or being the self-fulfilling prophecy changes because the nature of the will changes, if that makes sense.
I guess you could say peeling back the layers of the onion.
Yeah.
Okay, so
it's a very deep form of psychotherapy. It's a very deep form of psychotherapy, and it's really like anytime that we're talking about the planets and the zodiac and all those things, that's really what you're doing, is you're going deep on these projections to a very deep degree. But even like how they used to teach it in alchemy, like if you look at a star, it's a 7-pointed star with a lotus in the middle. The seven points are all tied to the 7 planetary energies, and then working these 7 aspects or these 7 projections. There's the negative side, but it's one of those things where it's just bringing something from their negative projections because it's in shadow. Like there's a good quality that comes like when you temper it and bring it out and work it, then something very positive comes about. And so even the idea of working the planetary energies is tied to that. And so, yeah.
And I'll say this much, in taking the classes with you, one of the things I've discovered is that I don't need to make any aspect of myself bad. I simply need to temper it so it's another tool in my toolbox.
Yeah.
And I can use it anytime I want.
Yeah.
And it's okay to be Catholic and be recovering and all at the same time.
Right. Like Imaho, I remember he said this to like a small group of us, like back when I was like 24, 25. And he said, there's really very few like bad people in the world, like really, really bad people. He said, there's people who are doing bad things, but like that they come in as like these bad people. He said, it happens, but it doesn't happen as much as you think. He said, most times what you think of as like somebody who you would deem like a bad person, where they're just doing a bunch of naughty stuff, it's just really an issue of conditioning. And if you can undo the conditioning, there's something within that person that can be very, very good and positive. It's just the conditioning sometimes is so much or so heavy that they really can break out of it. And so, it's one of those things that over a period of time, there's definitely people that come broken out of the factory, you know what I mean? Like, but it really is not as much as you would think. It's more that just some bad conditioning. The conditioning isn't always even in this lifetime. It could be over a series of lifetimes, but the conditioning really settles in. And if you can just undo that person has the potential for being like happy and not causing their own suffering and all those kinds of things. And so it's mostly just things are unconscious, things that are just out of control because we don't have awareness of what they are, you know, which really can be abilities that are just running amok, or just, you know, bad conditioning, you know, conditioning over a period of time. And so, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Keep me posted on that. Like, I'm curious to see how they do with that. You know, one of the things that we're kicking around is the ones of you guys that are like working as like with clients and doing therapy, is like maybe we're going to have a little study group just for the ones like who are doing like clinical like therapy sessions with people, that we can talk about, you know, integrated approaches with other modalities and things like that. And so,
and that would be great, because a lot of what I'm doing is integrating oils with various other modalities. And it's not that it's difficult, it just takes understanding and questions like this to help begin to see the picture. And how can I do all of them, and which one would bring the best, fastest, easiest change for this person?
And the thing that I like about groups like that is, you know, we kind of learn from each other's experiences. And so, you know, you have an experience, another person has an experience, I have an experience, and we sit and talk it out. Sometimes you gain more experience by having that circle of people where you talk things out with, and then you jump to, you know, a place that you wouldn't jump to on your own. And so that's what I used to really like when I'd work with like the psychologists and the doctors and osteopaths and all that. Man, I got to places I would never get on my own. Never in a million years.
Exactly.
Yeah. I was always of the mentality that, like, if you want to learn something, you find a situation where you can get in and do it, you know, rather than study it or whatever. And so, you know, it's probably the dyslexia, where if I read about it, I couldn't process it, but if I could get in and do it, I could figure it out. Like, and so.
Yes. And I remember back when I was learning computers, I'd have to read, but then I'd have to go try it and fail miserably. And like you said, throw it out, you know, eat dinner, do it all over again, and it will be significantly better. And as you say, throw it out 3 times, and the 4th time's the charm.
Failure is an amazing teacher.
Oh my gosh, it was wonderful. And it forced me to go back and read at every one of those failure points. Because it's like, I don't get this. What am I missing?
Yeah, you come back with it with like genuine questions, where before, like, there's questions that you're like, oh, I'm supposed to have questions about this, but you don't really know because you don't have the experience yet. Like, you almost have to get in and like kind of suffer through it a little bit. And then you go, okay, now I got some really good questions.
Yes.
Then when you read it, it's like, oh, that makes sense, because then you're resolving an issue.
Right. And even what the oils classes have taught me or helped me re-understand, I took a class in programming and we had to do the same exact problem over 12 weeks in 7 different programming languages. And some of them, it was like 10 characters and the problem was done. And others, we were at 100 pages to barely make it. And it helped me understand there's different tools for things. And the same with the oils. Yeah, I could start this person on the very first class I took and walk her through it class by class. But there's, you know, how do I choose where to focus? And that's sort of where my questions are going nowadays.
Yeah. Well, we're definitely going to put out like a little master healing booklet that we're going to give to the practitioners and things. And so, you know, it would be combined with class conditions and everything, but just like kind of cookbook things to approach different conditions and things you can just do with your clients. And yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Bill, then Christy.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Greg. Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great, thanks. Hopefully a simple question. I'm looking for an oil protocol for macular degeneration.
Yeah. I don't know that there with oils is going to be anything great there. I mean, the thing that I always got best, like the best results with that was with just doing pranic healing. Yeah. The thing with the eyes is the essential oils don't really treat that very well. I mean, using something like Schizandra can be helpful to the eyes. Inhaling cinnamon on a daily basis helps to jumpstart everything. But that macular degeneration, I think I had some herbs that I used now that I say that. Let me see if I can find it.
So they're getting some relief with some specific vitamins. Of course, the vitamins have a real poor effect on the digestive system.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I can look some things up, but I'll get back to you.
Okay.
But even with doing pH on it, it's got to be like 3 or 4 times a week. Like you have to stay on it. It's not a very long protocol, but it's just got to be done consistently.
And so one other, if I may, I
Sure,
seem to remember a usage of hyssop for grief. Grief as in someone lost someone, that type of grief.
Hyssop would be okay. I mean, I would probably use like ginger lily if you had it. There's the sadness and grief blend. Rose would be really good, and then from there you kind of start going down. Like marjoram would kind of work. Cypress would kind of work. Hyssop. I mean, hyssop wouldn't hurt, but I don't know that it would produce an amazing result. Ginger lily produces an amazing result. They don't even have to put it on; they can just inhale it. Like there was a lady that, she lost her son. He was young. He was only like 45 or 50 or something, and I mean, she was devastated, and I was gonna do some healings on her. This is several years ago, and I just, I felt bad. I couldn't carve out the time, and I was like, I need to do this, but it's going to take me like a week or two to be able to get to where I could do it. And so we just overnighted her some ginger lily, and by the time I was getting ready to do the healing, she was like, I'm pretty okay. She had gone through, and she wasn't even following a pattern. She was just inhaling the ginger lily. And so, I mean, rose will work in the same way, not quite as effective, but still pretty effective. Even the poplar will work, but if you don't have any of that and it's an immediate thing, I mean, hyssop, definitely wouldn't hurt, but it wouldn't be like my top 5 choices.
So I don't know why I just made a note of that at some point, and I don't even know what year it was I made the note. So I don't know why. I just, for some reason, had thought that it was involved with. So
it will have an impact, but it's just not going to be as strong as those other ones.
So when you did the ginger lily, would it be front heart, back heart, forehead, back?
For sadness and grief, I would actually do Ming Men, back heart, and crown. And if it's like an acute situation where something just happened over the last few days,
yes.
You could do front heart, but the issue is going to be the back heart. That's going to be the big issue, and doing the Ming Men back heart crown, it just keeps transmuting those things quite substantially. But you could linger on the back heart. Eventually you'd linger on the crown just because it breaks down the thought processes, but at first you're just really you're breaking down the emotional component. But some of like the sadness and grief is also like biological, and so the Ming Men is actually still kind of important in that, and so if they can, have them do those 3, but if they're not going to do chakras, just have them inhale it. Like that's fine.
Thank you.
Yeah. Like I think with that person, I said, like, if it gets overwhelming, like, think of your son and inhale the oil. And so you could just have them think of the person and then inhale. But yeah.
Thank you.
Something happened just like recently.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh no, it's not my family, but yeah.
Yeah, but still.
And I'm not sure that it's over with, because I think there's other family members that are going to be pretty close as well in dropping the body. So.
Oh, really?
The person's going to be into it for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. If you need something from me, let me know.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And then go ahead, Christy, then Chris.
Hey, Miss Christy.
Hi. How are you?
Hey.
So I'm asking about my sister-in-law. I've been working on her for the last 2 weeks, doing the protocol you gave me. And it feels like she's made some improvement in talking with her, definitely conversations around what you said would happen. But I wanted to see if I just need to continue on the same plan or do anything different.
I would probably still consider, like what I said was going to happen is kind of what's happening.
Yeah.
I would just probably stick with that for a little bit. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, that it's making progress. That's good. Like at some point when it feels like it bottoms out, we can shift it and change it a little bit. But there's probably still plenty of stuff to do there.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Yeah. It's good to hear that, like, even verbally or behaviorally, you can see the shifts, even if she's not recognizing that or not. Does she recognize it or no?
I don't know that she recognizes it.
Yeah, that's pretty normal. Like,
yeah.
When they recognize it, that's actually a little abnormal. Like when you have somebody who, like, wow, I'm behaving different. That's wow, that doesn't happen very often. Usually they'll shift and they don't know that they've shifted.
No, she literally said she said, I feel like someone's pulled me through this week and I just don't know who, something or something. And I'm like, okay, that's great. So, but she still has some of the stories, like some of the stories are still going on. So yeah.
It is, sometimes it's hard to let go of those stories.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll continue with the same.
And like, let me give you an example. Like this is like, I wouldn't even like judge that. It's just, it is what it is. But there was this one time where this guy, he took way too much of this medicine. He was an old cowboy. And so he was just treating himself like in the barn. And he took some horse medicine to treat something that he had. And it was too much. And, it almost killed him. But for a period, he was hallucinating really bad. And so, the family brought me in, and I actually knew the guy. So I hadn't seen him for a while. So I came in and, I did some work on him, and just 1 or 2 sessions, I made all the hallucinations stop. And, there's just some simple mechanics you go through and follow, and it produced the result and everything. And it was like even 2 or 3 years later, he would, like, when I would see him, I'd say, hey, like, how are you doing? Give me a rundown. And, he'd give me the rundown on the health issues, and, and I'd do like a little tune up on him. And during the session, he'd go, remember that time that those horses were falling out of the sky and they were being slaughtered and da 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 da. And he just had this super bizarre thing. And I looked at him and I was like, wait, what? And, that was his hallucination. And even though he stopped hallucinating and everything, that period of time, that was his perception. So that was his reality. And that was his memory. And when we moved past that, if somebody said that afterwards, he would think they're nuts, but he perceived it. So, even if the story stopped, which for him it kind of did. He still had the memory of that situation. And so every time I'd work on him, he'd go, remember that time? And I'd go, yeah, but that was a long time ago. And it was a weird situation. You know, I would say something like to him and he'd go, yeah, that was really weird. And he would just let it go. But I mean, he's a super practical guy. And he couldn't get past that story. You know, and so sometimes you're not going to maybe make that story go away, but you help them move past it, is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay, yeah, she
You
did
know,
order some
yeah.
oils from you all.
Yeah.
She's on, because we're transitioning her to other methods of anxiety. I did recommend she try their anxiety, grief, and fear class. We'll see, but she did order kava kava, and I have her using that just to help calm things down as another method of addressing anxiety rather than the other things she was doing. So, you know, we'll see. I have her doing it once a day. Would you do kava kava more than once a day?
She could do it like up to 3 times a day. Yeah.
Oh, up to 3 times. Okay. Okay. I'll check in that. And then lymphatic system on a personal level, much, much better. But now the last 2 days, I'm having like severe allergic responses with itching all over my body, just, you know, more evening related, which I'm not sure that's about.
And are you able to take quercetin at all for a few days?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm taking a little bit, but maybe I need more.
I would probably take 3 capsules 3 to 4 times a day for a little bit. Just like calm all that stuff down.
Okay. Yeah. It's pretty amped up right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Chris, then Megan.
Hey, Miss Chris.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, Greg.
Hey.
I wasn't able to email you, but the chest tightness that we were dealing with last week, it's about 70% better.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I normally feel it, especially at night, probably because I'm not doing anything. So
yeah,
I was taking
like
galbanum and myrrh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Keep up with it. That it's gotten 70% better is a good sign, and you know, because it had been lingering there for quite a while. And is it progressively, or did it just take a big leap? Is it like progressively kept getting better, or did it like just get better and then it slowed down, or?
It wasn't a big spike in getting better. It's progressively
Perfect.
improving. And then I saw in your newsletter the Monarda Supreme, I think.
Complex.
Oh, complex. Sorry. And is that? And it said that it can address circulatory issues.
The combination. Yeah, the combination does, just because it's not so much the Monarda in that does that. It's the Melissa is very good for tachycardia and palpitations. And then the oregano has a little bit of an effect on circulation, and so does lemongrass. And then thyme is also a circulatory tonic. And so the other oils that were combined with that, you know, I had been thinking about making something for a while that was something that you could take internal, although this you could also inhale, but that was really super specific for like addressing the potentials for COVID, and even the COVID like long, you know, the long version. And you know, there's a circulatory component. There's the thing with the Melissa is Melissa is almost as antiviral as Monarda, but because of the price, you know, it's not always the most practical thing. And Monarda is still a bit stronger, but the combination of the two work really well. But Melissa is very good for the physical heart, for the emotional heart. It's good for like the tachycardia and palpitations. But it also, it doesn't relax the diaphragm like how hyssop and anula and, Sitka and myrtle, they all do it through the respiratory function. Melissa relaxes the diaphragm, but neurologically. Like it calms down like the sympathetic calms down the sympathetic and strengthens the parasympathetic. And it does something a little bit different to the diaphragm. And in a way, what it does to the diaphragm actually increases or improves lymphatic function, because, there's several things you can do for lymphatic function. And one of them is like breathing and things like that. And so it's tied to how loose or how relaxed the diaphragm is. And so you could almost say that you could measure lymphatic function by looking at the health rays, looking at the diaphragm, looking at the lymph nodes, looking at the brain and, fuzzy or foggy thinking. You can look at several indicators and go, that's the issue. And Melissa addresses a bunch of that. And then the lemongrass, again, circulatory function, just because it has a big impact on lymphatic function, which picks up and addresses like the extra fluid and things that the circulatory function is not able to address. So it leaves it behind or kicks it off into the tissue. And so that's why it works so well for like when you're achy and stuff. And that combination is, it's not something I'd use like to treat. Like if somebody had a circulatory issue, I wouldn't go, this is the thing for you. But to treat like an immune issue, especially something that's COVID related or potential, and then the after effect of the impact on the circulatory system and the diaphragm, like I tried to make it as best I could to address all those issues. And so, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I played with it for a while. Like I didn't want to just like blend something and throw it out there. So we played with it for quite a while. And it was probably more geared towards long COVID than anything. But it's a hard one to address just because it doesn't always manifest the same in every person.
Right.
So, I looked at a bunch of different cases and I thought, okay, if we blend this, like this, I think this could actually address almost everybody that we had notes on. And so, we'll see. But
thank you for that. Would you recommend that for me for maintenance?
Potentially. I mean, if you're starting to improve and everything, you might be okay, and you could just stick with the normal Monarda. But maybe when you run out of the Monarda next time, like you could jump on the complex as well.
Okay. Chris just told me, hey, I'm almost out of Monarda. I said, hey, there's a new Monarda.
Yeah. I mean, it's that new Monarda, that complex. It's a lot of Monarda and a lot of Melissa, and then it's just enhanced with those other things. But it's still a lot of Monarda. But,
wonderful.
Yeah.
And Greg, can you talk briefly about the Kundalini blend? I just received mine. On how to use that, what it's best for.
So you could do inhalations, you could do salt baths with it, you could dab it on the chakras. I went through a little phase where I was putting it on the arms and legs, and I don't know, I found it more effective putting it on the chakras. Anytime you're dealing with the circulation of energy in the body, which was another way of saying Kundalini. It's also tied to like cords and things like that. And so One of the ways that I used to use it like a long, long time ago is I would just have people put several drops of it on their solar plexus, like as they laid down and went to bed. And
Oh, okay.
that was pretty nice. Like if I remember right, I want to say it's Angelica, and let me look it up real quick.
Is this something you can take internally?
Let me
Designed
look
for it.
just yeah. I want to say
It
yes.
was designed for that. It says so right there at the bottom, honey.
What's it say?
Oh, I think
It says
someone unmuted.
I got it.
Oh,
No.
So, and I was gonna say in the weekly newsletter, I think we even had like some protocol too, Greg.
oh, there's a
Oh yeah, we
protocol.
had the Lord's Prayer recipe.
Oh, okay. The center's
Yeah, let me find it here real quick. Yeah, you could totally take that internal. It's a lot of angelica, a little bit of lemongrass, and then some blue tansy. So calming and soothing, like super calming and soothing. So you could either take it internal, or you could put several drops on your solar plexus, or you can inhale it and then do the Lord's Prayer pattern.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
And then go ahead, Megan.
Hey, Megan.
Hey, how's it going? So just being a broken record again, still really asking the same thing, but I just got kind of triggered again with the claustrophobia thing. There was a store where somebody couldn't open one of the doors and she just kept pulling it, and it just like set off this whole like feeling trapped thing, even though the door I was using was fine, and blah, blah, blah. These are the nitty gritty things that I have to still deal with. And so like last time we talked, you had me do, I used Sharanagati with a pattern that kind of weird pattern where it's like right palm, left soul, right soul, left palm, and that thing. And that didn't seem to do anything. And I've been speaking Ambret internally off and on, which is one of the things I could do with it. And then the class that had been helping, I keep done it a few more times and I haven't seen a change, which was the Sacred Fire class, which uses like rescue and discernment and really splendid, whatever.
Had you been doing better for a while and then it got triggered again, or?
Yeah, so better, but not really super great, but just better than before. And now I don't know, step back like a couple of months or something. But again, it's just kind of not getting out of like a certain level. Here's an idea. This one of the first classes that you taught in Seattle, I asked you about it, and it wasn't as bad at that time. It was just like elevators was my only problem. And the first thing you said to me, which I thought about revisiting, is you said it seemed like there was some nerves in the gut that were like connected with that were setting off or not working right or something like that. And you told me to use colors of delicate regeneration on the navel chakra. So I tried that like 4 or 5 times and that didn't work then, but now 3 years later, maybe after some other classes and stuff, that would be helpful.
So this doesn't seem to resolve. Like let's have you go back to the Phoenix class, which was the end of October, and do the one for the psychic projections that are enslaving thought forms.
I didn't take that class.
Oh, you didn't. Okay, like I'll try to write you up a little protocol to go through that's like out of that. I mean, that wasn't going to be completely it, but
there's a protocol in the psychic perception class about.
No, it's something different. Yeah, I'll have to write it up for you.
Okay. Can I throw one more question?
Sure.
So same client I've been asking about. My questions are boring, everybody. Sorry. Same client. And she has a lot of nervous system problems, a lot of digestive problems. Those are the big ones. I tried the last 3 sessions or so to just comb the health rays, thinking because also lymphatic function I believe is an issue. Like when we do have a session where a lot of stuff comes out, it's like she feels awful and exhausted for days afterwards. So things aren't flushing out quickly like they should. And so doing that, there hasn't been a result yet, but this is a long-term case, obviously. But I still feel like it's a good idea. But do you have, just kind of stepping back, do you have any other ideas for an approach with her? And should I do, for example, should I do this health ray thing for 2 more weeks or months or?
I'm not remembering what the situation is. So what's
she had abuse, really severe. She was bedridden for 5 years, and then she has just so much agitation kind of in her brain and nervous system, but can't use essential oils because she's oversensitive to smells and tastes and things like that. So she's at least walking around and sitting at a desk a few hours a day, but barely eat any food. It's been over 2 years of 3 chronic healing sessions a week. So it's been tricky, but.
I would still stick with the health rays. They're still a mess.
Yeah.
And do the health rays and then a little psychotherapy. Just clean up, especially lower emotions. I don't even know that I'd use electric colors. I'd just probably use white or violet. But yeah, she still needs a bunch of. The thing is when somebody's like that, even if there's an improvement, a lot of times it won't register because they still have some of the symptoms. I had this one client, for example, kind of the same idea, right? And, treated them for a while and, asked them you feel any better? They'll go, nope. And I was like, okay, so when you came in on a scale of 1 to 100, you were at what? And they'd go a 98. And then I go, where are you at right now? And they'd go 3. And I was like, so you went from 98 to 3 and you don't feel any better yet. And they go, nope. And I'd be quiet and I'm trying to process what does that even mean? But in their mind, they still had the symptom. It wasn't to what degree. And so, do a lot of observation. Do you see a change in behavior? You see a change in their thought process. You see a change in their energy levels. And, sometimes as a person gets better, sometimes The issue might be that there's some deeper emotional thing that, some incident that happened or whatever. And so as they feel better, they become more present with it. And so whenever you kind of have this issue where a person's getting like a little bit better and then it kind of halts, is there's like the avoidance and then there's like a desperate avoidance. And so sometimes you have to just kind of keep getting in there and cleaning out some of the whatever the issue is until it like tips.
Okay, so it's almost like something psychological kind of come up, but she's sort of trying to subconsciously suppress it in a way. Is that
yeah
level?
Yeah. It's not like she's consciously going, I'm going to shove this down, but still like sometimes they don't have the skill set to process it, or it's too big and overwhelming, so they don't want it to come up, or it's usually much bigger in the mind than it actually is. So they sometimes make it into a bigger monster than it is. Any form of that, it doesn't really matter what it is. You just keep calm, treating it, and then at some point, hopefully they get better. But I always like to go to the brain when somebody's not really responding, because the brain is going to affect like neurological function, endocrine function, and also a bit of the mental body, and can clean things up. And like sometimes there's things stuck in and around the head that cause issues as well. And so cleaning that kind of stuff up helps the person to move out of the state that they're in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's tricky because like I'll take a certain approach for a while and then she'll say nothing changed. So I think, okay, I guess that didn't work. I tried something else. So, and it's really hard for me because I'm just not, I guess, intuitive to determine, oh, it actually did help. Like I just don't know how, like I've cleaned the brain, for example, for many sessions, but did it help? Did it not help? Like, should I do more? Should I stop? Like I'm not, I don't know. I just can't like assess from my side how long to take on certain steps, because she might know some improvement, but she might not know. And I'm just going off what she says, and a lot going on. It's confusing.
Her health rays are a mess. So, I mean, you can always spend time on those health rays.
Okay. And do you have any, in chronic healing, you have one way to do it. I've been trying to imagine her really small so that I can visualize them going.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That's all. That literally is a waste of time. Like that does very little therapeutically. Like just treat her normal size.
Okay, but so when it's hard, because in I think it was, I forget which class, you talked about visualizing the health rays being straight and 10 feet away from the body. So do I just picture her far away? I mean, just how do I like really? I'm using my
continue to move your crystal way out till you go farther out the body. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You just keep going. Like the shortcuts, if they worked, they wouldn't have been a shortcut. They would have been a technique. You know what I mean? Like there's a particular person that loves their shortcuts, and yeah.
I mean, just about my visualization, like, because if she is like sort of normal size, I'm just trying, and I'm next to her, then I'm just kind of like, how long? Okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Someone's asking, my friend's husband, a 69-year-old male, started to have memory loss for the past 3 years and continues to worsen, specifically with words and conversations. He has a non-operable lesion in the brain and has recently been diagnosed with vascular dementia. He is still able to do his normal daily activities without any problems. Is there any oils or herbs or protocols to reduce or slow down the symptoms and progression?
Vascular. I mean, I would use probably a couple of things. I would probably use rosemary verbena. That could be inhaled or taken internal, or both. And then I would use chamomiles, like Roman chamomile, German chamomile, even blue tansy or dark blue tansy. Yarrow could even work. Those could all just be inhaled, but like 25 inhalations, maybe twice a day. And that could be helpful. Yeah, but I would almost do them both. Like I do the rosemary and then one of the chamomiles or yarrow or something. And the inhalations with the rosemary needs to be done a couple of times a day as well. Yeah.
Now for the internal, what would the internal be?
Like two to three drops in water internally. This is what I'd also say about this is check this person's breath. You know, if it's a short, rapid breathing, I mean, sometimes what happens is the neck can get so tight, especially those two rope muscles that come from behind the ear, and one goes down to the clavicle and one goes to the sternum, so sternocleidomastoid. They pass over the carotid sinus, and if they're really super tight, it does impact blood flow to the head. And so energetically, the throat minor, like the bottom part here, and then the back of your head, both impact the carotid sinus, which would impact circulation to the brain. And so the rosemary and the chamomiles will help like the brain function, but make sure that the breath is deep, the breath is like slow and not like rapid, you know. The more you loosen up the diaphragm and the neck muscles through like using something like hyssop or the bronchioles blend or like Sitka, you know, anything, myrtle, anything that helps to relax the diaphragm will also relax the neck. I also like the idea of putting some of the vetiver across the base of the skull, just because that opens up the nuchal ligament, which opens up this whole plane of fascia around the neck, the head, and into the upper back. And sometimes that will open up circulation as well. And so, you know, you just kind of apply the vetiver all along the base of the skull. And we put it, you know, you can get a 5 mil thing, or you can use the roller ball where you can just like roll it on and hit it that way. And so, I mean, I would go at it with those three things. You know, I would go at it kind of hard. You know, because like, you know, if it's progressing and it's yeah, you know, there's different kinds of dementia, but I would tackle this pretty aggressively, actually.
Great, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. And if you have questions about that, let us know. Yeah.
If taking Bayloral internally, how many drops a day is appropriate?
You could do 2 or 3 a couple of times a day. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, if you're treating like a really serious infection, you could do more, but 2 or 3 drops twice a day is pretty solid. I mean, that's real solid.
And you guys can still unmute yourself, raise your hand, type in questions as well. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any here in the chat as well. Trying to find it. We had somebody email another one in too, and I thought maybe if we had time, we'd get to it as well. So let me just see. May or may not work. I've been having episodes with my GI tract for months. And I'm wondering if there's any oils or supplements that can help. I asked for specifics what was going on.
I needed to know what's going on.
Yeah, go ahead, Sandra.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, Greg.
Hey.
I was just looking over a discussion you had about health rays a couple of weeks ago, and you talked about basil, and I think I missed part of the discussion that you've had over the last couple of weeks. But I was just wondering if there were any other oils that you would recommend to open up the inner health rays.
Inner health rays. Basil works. Lavender works. Coffee works. And I'm going to look something up here real quick, and I can give you a couple others. Roman chamomile works. And I want to say the last one's clary sage. Give me just a second on that one.
Okay.
I think it is, though. Clary sage is either for inner or outer, for sure.
Yeah, clary sage and also petitgrain. Petitgrain would also. But so clary sage and petitgrain, like so. Okay. Those would be all the.
I can't. You said basil, and then you said coffee, and I think I missed the one that was in between.
Oh, lavender. Lavender helps to open up the inner health rays. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And I had another question about coffee. You said, taking baths with coffee would be a good idea. I have this strange thing. I don't like to be submerged in water. So I have been using your salt scrub in the shower. Do you think that's effective?
Yeah. That's perfect. That's what it's made for. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if it'd be as effective as actually submerging yourself. But
yeah, I would say it's just as effective. And the thing with the salt scrubs is we add a bunch of holy water to it. So it's got an extra little kind of punch there. So it would deepen the effect. And so, yeah, if there's a particular part of your body, because the inner health rays are from like the skin to the bone. And so it just like opens up like how your body, like how energy moves, but also like detoxifying to an even deeper level. But you could say that like how energy moves in the body, it can be impacted by a couple of things. One is like the cords, the healthy cords, like we talked about in the Phoenix class, and then the inner health rays. And by going through and opening that up, it just makes the body and the way the systems interact like much more fluid. And so, it's just good maintenance. It's a good way to detox. It's a good way to release lower emotions and allow them to transmute. There's so many reasons why to go through and do that. But like if you have an area in your body that's compromised, like say you have a shoulder or a back, spending extra time like working the health rays and then the inner health rays in that particular area to a greater degree will definitely either lessen the pain or accelerate the rate of healing of that particular area. And so, yeah.
That's great.
So, think of it as like, it's not only that it detoxifies, but when those are open, that area has a greater ability to absorb energy, like life force into those areas. And think of it as like the gasoline that fuels that area to getting healed. And so usually those areas are lacking. They have diminished levels of life force. And so by opening up the health rays and then the inner health rays, more is able to be absorbed. So then that means it is able to get better faster.
Great. Coffee, your coffee scrub was the first one I ever bought.
Mhm.
The first time I used it, I don't even know how to explain how I felt, but I felt wonderful. I guess that's the best way. And I was surprised that it had that effect, but it also smells delicious to me.
Yes, yeah, smells like
it was it was wonderful. I use the others. I have about 3 or 4 of them now, but I always go back to coffee because for some reason
coffee is solid. Like coffee is really super solid. It's a great cleanser. It's a great lymphatic stimulant, and you know, because it's such a good lymphatic stimulant and because it's such a good cleanser, it's like, if you look at it like chemically, it doesn't really have pain relieving properties, but because of the energetic impact that it has on particular areas, it actually diminishes pain a lot of times. And so it's a solid choice. Like, it is a really solid choice, you know. There was a period of time where, you know, this is like 20 years ago, but I took a coffee salt bath every day for like 2 years, I think.
Oh my!
It was a really long time, but I was just like, gotta clean this body up, like, you know. And I would always do it at the end of the day because, you know, it can make you a little tired. But man, I slept good, I felt good, the body cleaned up, and yeah, it eased some aches and pains that I'd had for a very long time. And, you know, it just cleaned up contamination from, you know, doing whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for making them.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Someone's wondering, is the coffee green or roasted?
It is I don't think it's green. I think it's been roasted. You know, the way that it smells, I can get like green coffee bean, like an oil of that, but it's crazy expensive, like crazy expensive. But it smells to me like it's been like roasted, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was for a little while, there was an essential oil of the coffee flower floating around, but it was only around for a couple of seasons and then it went away. And then, man, you thought rose was expensive. Ugh. And it was crazy priced.
And go ahead, Megan.
Hey, Megan.
I have a question. So since the clairvoyance question, I'm pretty sure I don't know, there's different types and levels of it, but for example, like I like to just do a little bit of energy healing on myself when I'm just like laying in bed and visualizing. If I am visualizing, like, it's usually my neck and shoulders and I'm like, you know, sleeping or energizing. Sometimes when I'm like sort of just, I've made a mental picture of myself and I'm working on it, but then like things appear there that I didn't like necessarily intend to put there, but it's not like it's bright and obvious and I'm like seeing, like, am I seeing energy or is it a coincidence?
I'm not sure what the question is.
Like, so like I'm just using visualization, but then sometimes parts of it seem to change or appear on their own in my visualization. Like, whereas usually a visualization is just something that like you place in your mind's eye, but it will change. If my question doesn't make sense.
Is it positive or negative?
It looks like what I interpret as maybe dirty energy, like it's dark in one area or it's brighter, or it looks like something's moving when I try to do something. It's okay, never mind.
Yeah, hard to say. Yeah, okay. hard to say. Yeah.
Would just taking a coffee salt bath straighten the inner health rays?
Oh yeah, very good.
Go ahead, Channing.
Hey, Miss Chen.
Hi, Greg.
Hey.
I have all my oils out and organized, and I spent half a day organizing all my notes. And what I realize is all the classes I've taken are all important. My question for you is, can you help me look at which one I most need to focus on right now, please? Can you just look at that without me giving you too much verbal?
Yeah. Hey, give me just a second here.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would say two things.
Mm-hmm.
Out of the Metatron class, segment E, like the one that's kind of like the hard one.
Oh yeah.
Would be super good for your work.
I have okay. I know exactly which section you're talking about too.
Okay. And then the other thing would be, what is the one that we called for the 4 seasons? Do you remember? It was like,
oh my gosh, what was it? It was
cycles.
Yeah.
Seasons. It might be the cycles. I mean, I think it has the word cycles in it.
I'm looking through my notes right now. By the way, I have it all organized. It's in the angels category, right?
Yeah. It's harnessing the law of cycles and the 4 seasons.
Yes, it's under
do that whole class.
Okay. The 4 seasons. Got it. The whole book?
I would start from the beginning and go to the end. Yeah.
Okay, let me scan that really quickly. It's the blood.
Yeah, it's the blood one. Yeah. It will complement what you do in the Metatron class, and it complements developing the mental body to a much higher degree.
Okay. And I have the seasons kit too, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then over the wintertime, we are going to do a little study group with the brainwaves. So like I would do the study group when we do the study group.
Okay.
Yeah, the 5 brainwave oils. Yeah, well,
the 5 brainwave oils.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Is it the
brainwave kit? Yeah.
So you're. It's the 11 brainwaves oils, isn't it?
That's the vital centers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Delta,
right.
alpha, beta, theta, gamma.
Yes. Yeah. Keep that one close because we're going to be going into it.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks. And on a fun note, I can't wait for you to see my new organization system with my oils.
Yeah.
Thank you, Greg.
We'll be seeing you soon.
Oh, I can't wait. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, a couple months.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Question. When I feel energy moving in my forehead, should I presume it is the breakdown of thought forms, or might it be something else at times?
It's hard to say. Give me an idea. Like what is it just happening randomly, or is it like you're in certain situations?
It's me, it's Barbara. It happens. Hi. It seems to happen often under different circumstances. And there was a time when I thought it was related to class, but you said something about its platforms breaking down. And I just don't know how to tell what it's doing when, and because I have this idea that I could be using the PERBA, but it's.
Do you get dizzy?
Don't really know.
Do you get dizzy?
Sometimes a little lightheaded. It happens a lot during classes, but I mean, it's been going on off and on as you sit here talking about questions. And so
I would say, I mean, it's a little bit hard to say, but I would say it's probably mostly something's breaking down.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Something breaking. I mean, there's times where that might not be the case, but I think it happens enough to where that's probably the case.
Yeah. Okay, so using the PIRBA then is appropriate.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like I would go through and, you know, sometimes with that, do the PIRBA on the back of the head. Like you can do it on the front, but like go to the back head and really dig on that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. And what if it happens during meditation? Same thing?
You could sit with it, but if it's so distracting to where you're going to stop, then I'd, you know, a lot of times I meditate with my PIRBA like right next to me, and I stop and, you know, because things are going to come up in meditation. So, you know, I usually have a spray on one hand and PIRBA on the other, and I either am spraying or doing the PIRBA.
Okay. And what spray do you use?
Poplar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
And I just want to, unless you guys have a question, I want to let everyone know we're doing a new special study group right after this.
Yeah, and I don't think we're even going to change, are we? Or do we have to change?
I do have to change these guys. I forgot we were going to do it like that. Yeah. Sorry.
So we're going to do a thing for like a little protocol for immunity after this instead of the angel thing. And so, yeah, join us if you can. Going into cold and flu seasons, we'll do some work with just talking about immunity over a period of time, and we are going to do a one-day study group that's like a free event on the December 17th, and I think the whole day we're just going to spend it on immunity. You know, immunity, maybe a little bit of respiratory stuff, just for cold and flu season. I mean, we're in that time, so we might as well, you know, sharpen our skill sets at dealing with it.
It is time, but quick question for the Channing one: can she burn any specific incense while doing the practice?
Mugwort would be good.